Thank you, Three Tree. It has been a pleasure working with you over the last 3 to 5 years, and Eric has been a great partner and helping us kind of find tech along the way. So a little bit about me. I have been in the tech world for a long time. I used to work for NASA, back during the 80s, and the ARPANET, where the internet originally started, and I used to hang out with a guy named Vint Cerf. And if you ever heard of Vint Cerf, probably a few of you don't. I seen heads nodded. But if you ever know the internet, that's who invented the internet. Go look him up. Huh? Yeah, everybody says Al Gore. I do say Al Gore did make the internet, because if you think about it, it goes back to the laws and what he opened up from a government standpoint that made the internet flourish, right? But there was two guys that actually invented a protocol called TCP/IP, and but that's where it all started. So, but I've been working for IHG for the last 29 years and have seen massive, growth of going from single brand. We're now up to 19 brands. We have over 6,300 hotels. We have a loyalty program which has close to 130 million loyalty members. We actually, in our core database around guests, we have about 320 million guest profiles that we manage. We have a pipeline of 2,000 hotels. So we have almost even another hotel company standing behind us waiting to open up more hotels. So we're in the franchise business. So you can see the size and number of franchises, 72% and then 28% are managed. We are very asset light, meaning we make money with other people's money from a franchise business. So. There. So this little dinner session here, I'll go over the IHG cloud journey, because I think that kind of sets the stage of, what is going on with sort of the network world, but also the security infrastructure. I'll hit on, so what I see is sort of the future of network infrastructure. And then I'll also talk about really the people side. All y'all have network architects or security architects, engineers. I will talk through kind of that journey of those individuals, because it does play a role. And again, some companies choose not to have that and outsource it, get it in network as a service, right? And then I'll open it up for Q&A, because it could be a good opportunity for you to ask any questions to me, or even anybody that has presented already from Kira or HPE or anybody else. So, but I do want to kind of say that I think it's 638 million years ago, there was this Cambrian explosion where organisms and started, if you go back to all the fossils you see, you have all the neat little things in the fossils. That came from the Cambrian explosion 538 million years ago. And prior to that, it was all simple organisms prior. And the complexity grew really hard in the Cambrian explosion. And if you look at it from today's world, the tech world is having that explosion today. And I'm going to show you a picture. It's not something I'm going to dig deep into, but I want to show you that this is IHG, all tech, everything that we do. 5 years ago, just these two little boxes at the bottom were center stage, 2 data centers, and that's where all the tech was. It was disaster recovery, all that kind of stuff. Now it has exploded. We're in the cloud. We're in SaaS. We use APIs and things all around the world. We're a hybrid cloud. We've also built in the middle before kind of in the early days, building a performance hub, a network performance hub that sits in different regions around the world, similar to what they talk about SASE, and they talk about building on-ramps for public cloud partners and so forth. So again, I won't spend much here, but I just want to see from a visual, this thing has exploded from a tech world. And from a network and a security, your life is in a different world today. So our cloud journey, it started about 8 years ago. We've always tried every year to do a cloud wave plan. We talk to all the product owners and we say, let's do a 3-year deal and try to get everything out of our data centers. That's not our vision's not that. Our vision is, let's go organic. And it's based on business drivers that you move to build that picture you saw before. And today, after 8 years, we've got over 59% of our assets out of our data center. And it's just organic. It's all business value, not a program that says you lift and shift. And most of the stuff is to re-architect it, right? We need to do sometimes to improve performance. We're a global company. I can't run applications out of Alpharetta, Georgia, or some one part of the world, because China, you go into the Great Firewall. You're Russia or wherever, anywhere in the world where you have hotels, you got to deliver high performance. So your edge, you got to get as close as you can from a network and from a security standpoint out to the edge. Also, compliance and regulatory has pushed us into the cloud. You can't do GDPR with data, and if I had to go build data centers myself, it would just be too costly, or do colos and build outs. It takes too long, the lead time, right? And then again, we still have a cloud wave plan that we do annually. We rotate. We pull off everything that moved off business organically, and then we repackage. We understand, because again, there is a bubble cost holding on to those 2 boxes at the bottom. Even though you've moved out, that cost stays flat, or relatively flat. And as you get the last VMs that are in those data centers, they become very expensive. So there will be a tipping point where the business sees that they need to invest and move out, right? So, and then one of the biggest things that we did during COVID, there was not a lot of business apps that we were doing except for our mobile web. Again, back to business need. We wanted to make sure we had the best mobile app that we could give to our loyalty members. But we also invested in build the right infrastructure, network. That's where those performance hubs came in. That's where we built our DevOps. We built all the Kubernetes and our distributed across the globe in 5 regions around the world. And what that allowed us to do is when we come out of COVID, the business can rock. The first business person didn't show up and says, I want to do this. Oh, I got to go build all this, and it's going to cost you a fortune, right? And it never happens, right? So we ended up making those investments. I think we've talked about it earlier about, run, walk, crawl, whatever. So we flipped the chip, and we built the infrastructure and our processes without really having any workloads to go to. But then when COVID came out, we were able to take on in a very fast pace. So now if you look at the future of networking infrastructure, a lot of companies just like ourselves, we're at hybrid cloud or multi-cloud. I think as you might have a data center today, but you're going to start using and consuming services that are probably outside of a data center. And what that creates from a network perspective is a multi-cloud. You've got to deal with, if you go cloud native, you've got to teach your resources how to network in each one of them. We decided early on to do a network overlay similar to like a Alkira, because then I could just be ubiquitous across all my clouds. I use the same architecture, same pattern, same everything, and let the APIs we talked about earlier. Let that company deal with the APIs and talking to the cloud vendors. We build everything in Terraform, and everything gets deployed, and we don't have to do any, setting up the routing table, setting up all the, connecting between different networks. It's all automated. You also, when you go to the cloud, you actually introduce many more edge connections, right? In a data center world, you probably got 2 internet connections. Now you're proliferating every region, all over the place. So your attack vector has now just got huge. And so from a security standpoint, you've got to deal with either that edge, but also all the way back in. So from a security perspective, again, we didn't go cloud native. We we build our own security model using our standard tools across both all the clouds. And then we're also seeing a convergence of network and security. We talked about SD-WAN's dead and all this kind of stuff. I think it fit for purpose for a while. I think over time it'll eventually not be the core thing that anybody invests in, but it will be a launch pin to sort of a SASE umbrella. And as we look at SASE, again, back to the edge, after COVID and all the, employees, everybody's now remote. Now your attack vector even got even larger, right? Instead of you managing people inside of corporate offices, you're now, because usually in the old days you had maybe a handful of people on VPN that were more the operations people or engineering people. But then when you move to everybody in their homes, you got your VPN went way up. Now you got devices that are out on the edge, right? And you got to secure them. And then from a network perspective, how do I troubleshoot that guy's performance or that user's performance from that device now at the edge? It was easy. I can just go, in the old days, go to the corporate office and I can test from that location. Now you got this mobile device, right? Zero trust, again, I think it's a journey. We're not there yet, and we talked about it earlier where there's many vendors and pieces and parts today, but I do see, and we talked about open APIs from HPE that, because you're going to be good at probably doing something, but if you don't open up and allow for those APIs to flow, you're going to have a disjointed kind of security model and network model. How do you troubleshoot across multiple vendors? How do you pass policy across multiple vendors? Else you're going to be doing siloed, I'm managing policy here, I'm managing, troubleshooting is going to be very hard to do. But I do see over time, similar to those performance hubs that were created and got us great value because we have a lot of data that's moving around across our platform. But eventually, a lot of it will move to more of a SASE managed, network as a service value proposition. And if you think about it, you're going to start managing a ZTNA model from a desktop into your network or via the internet. When you get into the cloud, you're going to be doing microseg. You're going to take that policy from that end user and say zero trust. I'm going to carry you all the way through. And that firewall that you used to have, its services start to diminish. I can do inspection with that SASE world. I don't need that firewall to do inspection. I don't need to do PCI inspection or, because I deal with credit cards or tokens. I've got to be able to do inspection where I can, right? So things are going to start shifting from the old technology that used to be there that you're still probably going to need that edge north-south firewall to protect your outside, but it's going to be doing less. It's going to move away from the user and the application function because zero trust is going to carry it. We have gone big into infrastructure as code. A lot of our network architects have now become more software architects. If you're not in a more of a modern software-defined network today, you need to. If you're still working on consoles and CLI, those days are numbered. One, it takes too long. You're going to make mistakes. You got to get it into more of a repeatable DevOps, kind of model that you can have source code that can be scanned for. You actually can, check from a security and from a configuration way before it gets deployed into the environment. Also, back to data-driven architecture, you're moving away from where you got to do source and IPs and for security rules and policies. You're moving to where it's more tagging. You're also shifting the responsibility of security almost even down to the application development team. Because what they put as a tag on their app lights up the security profile that they need. And it's all built in. That way you can have ephemeral things that show up, hey, I'm here, and then the policy gets applied, and then when I disappear, the policy disappears, right? AI and ML in the networking and the security, it's not there yet, but it's got to. Because if you look at the burn rate, I was reading an article, security SOC, people are sitting in a SOC today, about 65% don't last more than a year. Because it's all manual stuff. But AI could basically whip that out in a few minutes or seconds. Because it's repeat type things that they see that could tell you what to do, right? So again, AI and ML needs to heavily improve in there. It's not going to take away too many jobs. It's going to allow them to do higher level tasks that's more value to the company. I also see, kind of network as a service, highly valuable, because again, you don't need to be patching firmware. You don't need to be doing infrastructure type tasks in a business world. So, I do see a lot of value where, you get access to that infrastructure and you just configure it and building your logic in there, but someone else takes care of the care and feeding of it, right? And Doc says, you don't just walk into the store and buy plutonium, right? Now let me talk about sort of the professionals. I kind of hit a little bit on a few other things around the kind of the professionals of security and network. Back in the old days, you used to go get, as a network person, a CCIE from Cisco, right? That was the big thing you put on your resume, and you were like a rock star. That still survives, but can they do cloud? Are they skilled enough in the new world, software defined? Probably not, because they're more console, they're more, CLI, get back on the consoles of the technology. But nowadays, you're starting to see, cloud network engineers and architects, and it's a blend of skills. It's not just networking. It's now they know systems, they know security, they know networks, they know. They also probably become more software developers, right? Because they're doing all their work in Terraform or in some sort of automation architecture, right? Technical skills are a lot different from managing data centers or security and networking in data centers. You know, you move away from different routing protocols. You're actually moving to more BGP. I mean, when you start building all these multi-cloud, hybrid clouds, you're bringing up a lot of BGP connections talking to everything. And you got to manage all that. It's a different gig. You also look to implement encryption everywhere. Also, kind of back to the load balancers, DNS, and you're also, a lot of things you're shifting to the development and app owner, where you typically used to be a network folks, DNS now and load balancers and all that's part of it. And in our world, it's part of the DevOps process. We don't get involved in SSLs. We don't have to do all that anymore. So pieces are peeling away from that network architect or that engineer in the future. But it doesn't take away that you still have to go troubleshoot it, right? You got to know that world. Kind of like the DNS, GTM, load balance shift to the app devs. Tagging has become sort of the holy grail of kind of networking and security, because you can control everything by, then you have policies that, you don't have to worry about where you apply them. They just show up on the network where the app shows up, right? Gives you a lot more agility to operate as a company. You talk about disaster recovery. I can redeploy or rehydrate something somewhere else based on its tagging. It's going to light up the security and the networking for it. So again, the complexity of potentially it's going to be many vendors involved. There's going to be, you've got to have telemetry and data coming out of all angles for a network and a security person to be able to troubleshoot. So data is going to be your friend. And if you're not pulling all that data in from from the desktop of that person that's sitting remote, and that's why AI and ML is so important. That when trouble's from that one user, you've got to somewhat have the answer why that problem's happening fairly quickly. If not, you don't have an organization that can scale to support that. And then I talked about it before, Zero Trust and the firewalls. I think their lives are getting smaller and smaller. Zero Trust will pick up a lot of the duties. The only piece that I still have not figured out in the Zero Trust world is network routing. Alkir, you hear me? You got to solve that. You get on it. Put that on your podcast. That's the one piece that it's not part of any roadmap of a Zero Trust world is network routing. And if I could get that part of it, then then I can have it all in one blanket of sort of a SASE solution. I guess you guys aren't ready for that yet, but your kids are going to love it. So, all right. So I will open it up for questions and answers. I'd love to, for anybody. Yeah, here you go. I got one right here.
So this usually starts off with some popular. You guys had a data breach a year and a half ago, if I recall, right? So worry about that. Coming back.
Why'd you mention?
Because you guys have to come back to life, obviously, as part of the business. Can you talk us a little bit about like disaster recovery and like how you guys got back in the money? Because the data was like the customer data. So if I'm a customer, I want to go make reservations. How can you not pull my reservations? How did you guys get back so quickly or efficiently, if you will? And what type of technologies would you like to see come in the future to help with that? Because again, it's going to happen to everybody eventually.
Yep.
How'd you guys get through that?
Yeah, I mean, any breach, everybody's going to experience it. It's how you react, right? And you know, we had all our revenue business back online in several days. It took us less than probably 48 hours to start getting bookings, and all our guest data. And, our guest data was not touched. So people were able to do bookings. It took us another week or so to get most of the non-critical type apps up and running, but it was all recovering, right? It was So and the good thing about a breach where there's not is you do get attention and funding that you can actually go and do some more creative things of do a ZTNA. You can do more security type programs. But I think there's a lot of tools out there today, and from your endpoint management to the problem today I see in sort of the security world is it's like a race, and you see every vendor providing DLP. It gets a nightmare, right? And some of them do it well. Some of them, when you buy the product, you don't support IP6, right? I need that. I've got to be able to send a message from a client IP6 all the way through into the backside, right? Don't just accept it and then drop it off on the backside, right? So it's today. I think there's still a lot of jockeying from the security vendors, and would love to see that taper down to where you got solid products that provide all the key. Because again. SASE, if you look underneath there, there's about 40, 50 different acronyms. I think you touched on a few of them. Does everybody do that right or perfect, right? So, and it gets back to my conversation about, a security policy. If I apply a security policy for ZTNA, my firewall's got to accept that. My application has to accept that. My database on the other end is going to accept that, right? For that one user all the way through the pipeline to be zero trust, right? So there's still a long road for a lot of vendors to get to. But good question. Yes?
I'd like to hear a little bit more about infrastructure as code and what value you're getting from it.
Infrastructure as code. The value, so again, back during COVID, we built pipelines and we built repos, and we initially started off with hiring people on the outside because it was a new business for us. So we had to hire the guns to come in to be able to teach us how to develop source code, be a software developer, build repos, build the DevOps pipeline and everything. We've gone through several iterations. First time it was pieces and parts, and then we've now done some adjuncts where it's more modular, where I can combine and based on the project to be able to get the automation I want. It's a long slog. It's not something you can do very quickly, but the value is time to market. Now you can potentially, and we're in the process right now, is turning some of that automation around and putting it into ServiceNow or into a self-service model. So you don't have to call or open up a project, okay, and go through a long slog of sprints or 5 sprints before I get the account created. What? Account? And it just to push a little button, right? So the value now is really time to market, right? Automation. I'm also able to inject in that process now my security checks. I don't wait till it gets deployed into production and someone's got a bad config, right? I can scan that Terraform to look for. I can look for. Do you have tagging in there? I can put all my architectural standards, which we do, to validate before as it moves up the chain, right? Huge value for us. The quality of the work that you deliver gets better and better. Thank you. Oh, no. Yes.
Question. You said currently you're what, at 50, 60% cloud, migrated to cloud?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how long is that taking you?
8 years.
8 years? Okay. Yeah, that's reasonable. So you also said you didn't do what I would consider more of like a brownfield migration where you lift and shift. You did, was it more of a greenfield where you just rebuilt everything from the ground up?
Yeah.
That was painful, but overall you said it was worth it, right? Any costs or?
No. Again, if COVID probably did not happen, it would have been a hard road, because we probably would have not gotten the funding, because the projects would have been filling the year up, and and we would have probably been scurried off to a different path. But because we had that 3 years of time and money that our board gave us money to go that invest, because we pitched the story. We want to be ready when we come out of COVID that we can run.
Makes sense. That's the future. Yeah, down the road.
Yeah.
Long-term vision. It's difficult. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm surprised. I usually pitch that, but I always get shut down.
It's tough. But COVID helped out. But it has taken I'd say between 5 and 8 years. We as a business did not want to do lift and shift and just move everything into the cloud, because what we worry is you fall flat on your face. You end up saying you're going to do it in 3 years or whatever at this price. You never get there. It blows up. A lot of people probably come back to the colo and say it got too expensive. One of the other things that we found is hard is databases. Out of all the tech, firewalls are probably one of them, but databases is the next one, because we run Exadata boxes, and if you understand Oracle, and those are powerful machines. And it's not so much the cost. It's the product teams that built products over the last 10 or 15 years have somewhat built a lot of technical debt in that world. They probably wrote the worst SQL calls. They got stored procedures. They got so much garbage in their technical debt that when you move that box or the capability into the cloud, you don't have enough hardware to support what they're used to using on this. What we found is you need to invest in the time before you move and clean up the house before you move, because the cost, that's where everybody runs. Because if I move as is, the cost to run that database in the cloud is just way too expensive. And then ask them to try to re-architect it once it's over there. It doesn't work, because it goes back. Yeah. So that's probably a good learning piece is around databases. If you don't focus around, clean it up, because again, the thing could have 40 IOPS. That's too much. Get it down to like 10. Clean up your SQL, your indexes, everything, and then move it, and you'll see a better result. So, but we've missed many live launches because of the database. So, good question. Anything else? Yes.
You mentioned earlier how performance hubs were kind of a key piece of your design. Can you share more about how that's helped you, or do you think that you changed things going forward? Or
yeah. So originally the thought was I was on an MPLS network. Our business was growing, and I could see the amount of petabytes of data that needs to flow around our world. I can't do it over those little pipes, and if I upgrade the pipes, the cost is like a hockey stick. So we early on built an architecture that builds performance hubs around the world. That was the first thing that I laid out, because you can't run a network out of 2 locations in the United States. Not a global company. So we built these. So I moved my WAN out of those 2 centers and put it up into a mesh, you know, all day. I have a token, not a token ring. Did I say that? Is that like Shark? Is that like Shark Tank?
Back to the future.
Back to the future. All right, there we go. You know, when I started playing with Token Ring, it's faster than 10 gig, right? So we built this, and the idea was it would be a hub and spoke architecture. All the public clouds would plug in. Also, the reason I use Equinix, it's all software defined. I have no racks, no hardware, nothing. It's all click. You know, I use Terraform, and I can build a performance hub in a couple of days or less. You know, I can put all the firewalls, I can put all the Cisco devices, I can put, you know, all the connectivity. It's quick and easy. But, you know, it gave me the plumbing because I talk between clouds. I got to move data. You know, we have found that, you know, if you run your transactions over the public internet to the front for a lot of the apps, where I might have an app or a service that's sitting in GCP and another one in AWS, and if it flows over the public internet to hit another microservice or API, it's a lot faster if I just let it run through the performance hubs, because there's guarantees in performance, right? And it's a private network, right? So a big value to us. And in the early days, you know, it was also for getting rid of egress charges, because Equinix does between 70 and 80% discount. Now the public cloud providers are getting rid of egress charges. I'm like, that was my value proposition. So, but good question. Hopefully I answered your question.
Do you front end most of your like end user traffic, like public internet traffic? Does that hit those first, or does that go directly out of those?
No, we built in all our public clouds. We have a landing zone architecture where I have a PCI and a non-PCI egress architecture. So I only have 2 per region. You know, so not every account has public. It's only a group that allows traffic in and out. And then I front that with firewalls and my network overlay to serve traffic going out and then traffic coming in.
It sounds like you're using Terraform, but do you use also like Ansible or other tools? Well, purely Terraform.
Yeah. We want standard that as a platform across all clouds and our performance hubs. One from a, you know, team and resource level that everybody knows how to code in that space, right? Yeah, I mean, you know, even the security tools that we use, you know, we don't use cloud native. We try to use tools that will lay on top of all the cloud providers and are, you know, if they can, are on-prem as well. Makes it easier to manage. One console, you know. So, anything else? It's getting close to cocktails. Is that what everybody's saying? Well, Eric, thank you very much. I appreciate it.